All right, welcome back to this week's episode of What I Watched This Week. I was in Vegas for the middle part of the week, so I didn't get to watch as much as I usually do. I did hit a new movie. Obviously, we have The Last of Us that came out last night, and I watched one of my favorite movies ever. I watch it every time I'm going to Vegas, whether I'm flying in the night of, or watching it the night before. But let's just get into it this week. I did when I was in Vegas. I went to an IMAX screening at AMC for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. I'll do that review here, a lighter review, a little bit more in depth review at first, with non-spoiler than what I gave in my short, and then I'm going to go full spoiler and give my thoughts about the movie. It's been a whole weekend. And I'll, there'll be a spoiler tag up here whenever that's up. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, you can skip over it, and skim through and see. Obviously, we'll talk about The Last of Us episode 6 last night. We got a lot going on there. There's a lot I want to talk about, and more positives about that show. And then my favorite movie to watch when I'm going to Vegas and I want to get into that Vegas atmosphere is Ocean's 11. So I'm going to at the end here. That's what I kind of like about this idea of what I watched this week, because I can kind of comment on things I might have seen in theaters before that I'm going back to re-see. Like I've done with The Menu or Everything Everywhere All at Once. Older movies like Titanic that I get to see, and movies like this, Ocean's 11. I'll never really would get a chance to make a basic Ocean's 11 review since it came out over a decade ago, almost 2 decades ago. But I get to talk about it here because I watched it last week. So let's start off with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. This movie is pretty jaded for me in a lot of ways. I think it had a really solid comedy coming from Paul Rudd. I liked kind of the world and the comedy bits that went into it. It felt Ant-Man like whenever it had the comedy going for it. Jonathan Majors did it very well as Kang. I think you get presented a little bit more depth to the character than we get for normal Marvel villains, but not too much depth. And that's not necessarily a great thing, but Jonathan Majors really brings off a high intensity, and he really makes you wonder what's if they're making the right choice here or not. In this movie, when it comes to the Ant-Man crew, Catherine Newton I thought was decent as Cassie Lang. I enjoyed her part. I'll go into more why I liked her character in this movie. Michelle Pfeiffer I thought again had great connections. Her connections to the quantum realm, her acting and stuff, I thought was really well done. I understood why she did not, why she really, did not tell anybody about what happened down here and what is down here. And Michael Douglas was just Michael Douglas. He wasn't horrible. He wasn't great, but he plays your average Michael Douglas, character as Hank Pym here. Doesn't go above certain levels, didn't go beyond. He had a couple funny jokes, but he was primarily in this movie, and I know Bill Murray was in there. He's really only in one scene. Very funny in that one scene, but not somebody you think would be throughout the whole, for him being billed the way it was. He was really just in like one scene, and I wish he was maybe in more of the movie to get that kind of Bill Murray energy, but let's just go into spoilers, because I enjoyed this movie a decent amount. I have major issues with it. I feel like the third act, when you watch the movie, you're like, I feel like I've watched this a million times, not just in Marvel movies, but other style movies. And I think they cop out near the end. And going into spoilers, so spoiler section here, we're going straight to spoilers. My two biggest issues with this movie is by far the ending. And the two parts I don't like is the Rebellion mock Rise of the Skywalker, Avengers Endgame, any movie that feels like you have a bunch of people coming in last second, and they do it kind of twice in this movie. They do a video call with Cassie's character, calling all of them in, and then you see them coming in and making a difference. And then you have Hank Pym with his ants coming at the end. It's just over the top, kind of like, I don't need this big battle overall. I know why you put it in the movie. I know you're trying to show Kang as a conqueror, and I do enjoy that asset, but it felt very formulaic to what we always have been getting over and over and over again. Not just in Marvel movies, but in movies altogether. We get the everybody comes to save the day at the very end scene. And they do it 3 times in this movie, actually. They do it with the rebels coming in. They do it with the ants coming in to stop Kang, and then they do it with the Wasp at the end, coming in and saving Scott from Kang. And it's just you repeat the same beat over and over and over again. It feels very lazy. It doesn't create as much of a reaction for me as an audience viewer, and it overall just leaves a very meh feeling coming out of the movie with what really had, I thought, a very good opening start. I like the going back and seeing Catherine, and seeing Michelle Pfeiffer's character. I'm trying to remember what her name is, Janet Van Dyne, and seeing her interaction with Kang and how she almost let him go, but saw a whole worlds being destroyed and decided against it per se. But I like how we saw just him getting his suit back and being powered on. It should powered on enough that he got his technology back, allowed him to make like the even in the quantum realm into a huge paradise of a city, a huge paradise of a power that nobody could really stop. I wish we would have seen it to where Scott and Kang were stuck together at the end. I know it would have felt very similar to what happened with Ant-Man and the Wasp, with Scott being stuck in the quantum realm after in the post-credit scene. But I think the idea of Scott sacrificing himself um, to make sure Kang doesn't get out, I thought would have worked really, really well. And I think it would have added a lot bleaker, but it would have added a lot more stakes and I think realism to the situation. Having Wasp come in and potentially take out this Kang, again, really made Kang look kind of silly and stupid. I didn't like it overall very much. I think Evangeline Lilly's character in this movie is very well underserved. It's definitely a movie that's more about Michelle Pfeiffer, and then the relationship, Michelle Pfeiffer, Kang, and him wanting to go back, and the relationship between Cassie and Scott. The Wasp gets lost overall in the movie. There are some parts where she goes to save him, but she was mainly just there to save Scott, and be a little bit upset with her mom. That was all the Wasp's duty were in this movie, which I think for being called Ant-Man and the Wasp is a huge disservice for the movie. This should have just been called Ant-Man Quantumania. Or better yet, I would have liked if this would have been a Kang movie focus that featured Ant-Man coming in per se, much like how Infinity War was a Thanos style movie that featured the Avengers and the MCU as a whole. I wouldn't have minded if this was more of a Kang centric movie and we got the Ant-Man characters being there as more of a side, surprise trying to stop him. And we didn't need to go into all these emotional deaths and all these different little leftover territories. I think that could have worked very, very well. But the positives for the movie, though, is Paul Rudd as Ant-Man is still amazingly cast. His humor is really well. You see how he's trying to, make the most of what has happened with him in the world, but also he's really trying to make sure his daughter can live a normal style life or in that type of a way. He's not realizing that his daughter, because he was gone, was, searching for him. And I love that about Cassie, that, even with the Van Dynes and Pym Tech gone, she was trying to research to figure out how she can potentially go into the quantum, to find him in the quantum realm when he was down there. And even afterwards, still continuing that science with the Pyms and the Van Dynes, getting having her own suit. I love that, and I loved how when you watch the trailers, you're like, oh, she's getting arrested. She's gonna be a snotty teenager who's aggressive. No, she's like, she was doing peaceful protesting for things I think that matter in this world. And when I say in this world, I mean it don't matter in our world, but also in the MCU world. How you're saying the blip left a lot of people homeless, and she's protesting for those people's rights. And she's really out there, kind of being that young adult fighting for people like a lot of young adults go out there and say and do. I think that can feel over the top and basic for some people, but I liked it because we didn't get edgy Cassie. We didn't get Cassie who was getting in trouble because her father was gone for so long. No, she wants to make a difference in the world. She wants to be a positive difference, much in the way that Scott Lang in the first Ant-Man movie was in jail because he hacked into a big Fortune 500 company and gave out the money to all of the employees in that type of a way. I think Jonathan Majors is Kang. You see, I love how he plays with them and like I can give you time. He knows what he can control. He knows how he's trying to get people to buy people in. But he also know whenever he says he's gonna do something, like yeah, he's not afraid to kill, and he's not afraid to threaten to kill. And I think that the trailer where they made you think that it might be a more peaceful deal between Scott Lang and Kang, and helping Kang, potentially find its way out. But no, it was serious. I love in the movie how Kang is like, "I will kill your daughter right in front of you," and then he would be like, "I will kill your father right in front of you and make you live that 1,000 times over, because I can control that with time." And I just love that menacing, and when you were in the moments, you believed it, and the acting coming from Catherine Newton and Paul Rudd also made you feel like you knew what he was doing, and I don't blame Ant Man for doing the things that almost get Kang out. And I love how Kang was like, "I'm actually the good Kang. I'm the one. They all exiled me here because I wanted to stop them because they were blowing up inversions. They were destroying the multiverse in a multiversal war, and I am the good one." And I love how at the end, that's one positive about the ending, having Scott survive and went out, and him thinking like, "Oh man, did we just cause a really bad thing to happen? No, that was the right thing to do. But did we really cause a bad thing to happen? Oh, I'm here with my daughter. But did we really just do something very, 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 very bad? I don't have to worry about that." That was the one positive part about the ending. Now, when it comes to the after credit scenes, we go in and talk about the Council of Kangs. I think that's all going to come down to in the movies of how Jonathan Major acts, and if he can pull off these characters. I think some people might think it was goofy and an SNL type skit there. I'm hoping we give these individuals better writing and we get to see them in better ways, whether it be in other MCU films or in the actual Avenger Kang Dynasty coming up. But I'm interested to see how people react to seeing so many versions of the same character being played throughout Marvel. And I wonder if we could get more of him throughout other Marvel projects here in the future. If he's going to start popping up as the main villain in other movies until we get to Kang Dynasty, when it's going to be all of them in this big multiversal war. The second one made me very excited for Loki. Loki, I think, for me, up there with, I think it's pretty much tied with WandaVision as the best MCU Disney Plus shows that I've been enjoying. And I love just hearing Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston as Loki and Mobius. And Mobius like, he doesn't look that dangerous. And then you see Kang as Victor Timely in like the 1920s, 1910s, and Loki be like, "No, trust me, and just like, I want Loki season 2 now. I love those guys together. It's a shame that I can't say it's a shame because we'll get more of them together in a TV show than we are doing a film. But this also marks the first time we've seen a TV show used in an after credit scene for the MCU. All the other, even with Disney Plus shows coming in, they've always only foreshadowed MCU movies. So I wonder how many people who haven't seen Loki saw that and were like, "Ooh, I need to go check out this Loki series." Or if they, weren't sure if they're going to go watch Loki because the last Disney Plus shows might not have been for them. I'm hoping it gets people excited. It gets me very much excited because it feels like the show that is able to have a path forward. It's not being forced into a 6-episode arc. It knows that it's over multiple seasons. And now that we've seen the He Who Remains on Loki and Kang the Conqueror and Quantumania, I'm excited to see where Loki goes with this storyline and how it is moving forward. But overall, my spoiler thoughts is like the third act of this movie. It just does too many saving moments, repeat moments, blah 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 moments over and over and over again, and make this movie go from what I thought was a really enjoyable, could have been really strong MCU movie to a bottom middle of the pack MCU movie. It's not the worst one by far. Obviously, you have your Dark Worlds and your Iron Man 2s. But this isn't going to be any. This isn't better than Guardians 2. This isn't better than Black Panther for me, the original Black Panther. This isn't better than Wakanda Forever. It's kind of right there with Multiverse of Madness, maybe a little bit ahead of Thor: Love and Thunder. Very mixed, very very mixed. Not too happy with this movie overall. But we're going to Hey, cow. You're going to see spoilers here for the rest of the section. Um, I forgot to make a thing going out. I'm not going to do that right now. Uh, or maybe I will. No, I'm not going to do that right now. It's just going to say spoilers on it. Let's see if I can. Add a new source. We're not going to worry about it. It'll just say spoilers there. We don't actually have spoilers at all. So, but Last of Us Last Night, episode 6, we finally got to meet Tommy. We got to see what's going, where he's been and what he's doing, and kind of where civilization is thriving right now in Jackson, Wyoming. We saw both Ellie and Joel be very, very vulnerable with not just themselves, but with other people around them. You're really getting to see, Ellie latching onto Joel, and he is her keystone. He is the person that she needs to be around to feel safe and feel happy. She feels like she's teaching him the way of the world, and she feels like she's safe with him. Joel, on the other hand, is coming off of, and I loved how the show did this, because I'm talking to friends, and they didn't do this at all in the game. They're showing Joel kind of deal with mental and physical struggles of what they've been going through, and how much he's kind of, as an adult, feels like he's failing. Whether that starts out with Tess getting bit in the very beginning. Ellie saved him in the beginning of the Kansas City episode. You had Henry have to kill Sam when he was on top of Ellie last episode. Henry could have easily have just shot Ellie and Joel and killed himself, but he only shot Sam and let Joel and Ellie live. Joel feels like he's a failure, and he feels like he is a ticking time bomb of doom, for not just for Ellie, but also for he's now believing the vaccine pretty hardcore, that she is going to potentially give a saving grace option for this world. Even this episode, he begins with him falling asleep when he was on watch, and he didn't even notice that Ellie took over. So we're seeing the panic and the fear in Joel, and the conversation he has with Tommy when he gets real is like, hey, all this stuff has happened, and I worry I'm gonna fail. I'm worried that's gonna be me. I am gonna fail her, and I'm gonna fail the world, because she is the cure. Like, and he told Tommy, like, she was bit months and months ago, and there's not even a sniff of infected on her. She's immune, and I think he was, bitter, and you're seeing the negative sides too of Joel, which I like. Like, he wasn't really happy for Tommy when he got there, and he felt very like amiss about why couldn't you tell me this stuff. I feel like Joel, knowing Bill and Frank, should understand the aspect of keeping quiet on these places. But he seemed really upset that he wasn't told about them from Tommy, and wasn't very nice to Tommy's wife Maria. Wasn't really nice at first to Ellie, but as the episode went on, we got to see more of his vulnerabilities. He let his guard down. You remind yourself he's been on the walk and run with Ellie now for 3 months trying to find Tommy. In his mind, probably, not knowing day by day if he's going to survive. Got some reminders this episode of Sarah, and how that affects him, and in a way, it kind of tells him he really, he needs to give Ellie a chance. And Ellie, when she had that breakdown of saying like, "Oh, you're just gonna drop me off and give me off to Tommy now? Well, f you, like, I'm not your daughter, but I've lost people too." And that whole scene Bella Ramsey has done very, very well. Do you see how defensive she is of Joel this episode? She does not take anybody's crap when they try to talk down on him. She's like, no, he's gotten me here. He's the reason why I'm alive. I don't trust what the world is like without Joel at this point. And this episode could have ended pretty quickly, and I almost thought it was, but then we went into a awesome scene at the university. We had some monkey scene. There was a raider fight that happened. We're left in a very ambiguous statement, and I just think that it left off. And I was wondering, was the game kind of like this? And I saw, the game is like this. So I'm like, okay, I'm interested. This I know next week's preview is going to be a prequel type thing again with Ellie and Riley. But I generally think that the show really hit a lot of great moments today with Ellie and Joel, and we finally got to a place where they both acknowledge and agree of like we're here together with each other, moving on no matter what. And I don't know how that's gonna, where that's gonna go for the rest of the season, but it's nice that we finally got them kind of off guard with each other and where they're just like having friendly conversations. There's no this, there's no that, there's no talking down, there's no she's cargo. Like, no, we're in this together. We're a pair that are together now for better or for worse. And hopefully it's for better as me as an audience watcher, but I could also see a world where it could be for worse. Um, and down the road too. And we'll have to see where that goes over the next 3 weeks. I'm so enjoying The Last of Us. One of the best new shows HBO has done in a long, long time. I think this is, I know they did House of the Dragon last year, but this is the Game of Thrones replacement they've been looking for the last 4 or 5 years. So, super, super enjoyed Last of Us last night. All right, let's get back into here. And finally, we get to talk about one of my favorite guilty pleasure movies of all time, Ocean's 11. So I went to Vegas last week. I had a couple days off from work, and Vegas is super cheap and super easy to go to here in Boise. I think for most places that's the same thing. It's they want people to go to Vegas, and Ocean's 11 is a great heist movie with a loaded cast. I mean, just here you see Matt Damon, Andy Garcia, Brad Pitt, Julia Roberts, George Clooney, but there's people in there like Don Cheadle, Bernie Mac. It's just a loaded, great cast that has great chemistry together, that has great comedy bits together. You get the atmosphere of Vegas in the movie, but you also, get so much more. The bits that go on all the way in. I love this movie. I always can put it on, watch it, and smile. I know it can be cheesy. It's not realistic, but they make it feel just realistic enough to be like, could this? I mean, this really couldn't work nowadays. But like 20 years ago, like could this stuff have? Could you have had this high tech kind of heist plan and maybe it work? I mean, obviously no. But the way they set it up was like I like that. There's twists throughout the movie that work decently well. You're always left wondering how did it work? How did they get the heist done? And the payoff to that, I think, is very well done at the end of the movie. Ocean's 11 is just a fun blast. I love, George Clooney in this. Brad Pitt is always hilarious. Seeing a young Matt Damon be playing kind of a very, quieter role, I think was really, really great. I love seeing Bernie Mac in here. I missed that, we lost him almost, so long ago. And in this movie, you think, oh man, it's, if you've never seen the movie, you're like, man, this movie's loaded, it's loaded. And then you get Julia Roberts coming in the middle, and you're like, oh boy. Don Cheadle, who is so much bigger of an actor nowadays than when he was back then, you can see that talent. He's probably the supporting actor that does the most for me in the movie. I always, when Basher comes on, I'm always laughing. I love his bits. I love his comedy timings. I love his facial expressions. This movie is a stacked cast, top to bottom, and it's just something that I really, really do enjoy. And like I said, every time I go to Vegas, I put this on. The soundtrack's really great. The ending shot at the Bellagio has always made me fall in love with the Bellagio fountains. I just love Ocean's 11. It's a recommendation for me for anybody to go and see. If you like heist movies and you've never seen it before, please give it you need to go watch it. It's just really funny, really enjoyable, a great piece of work altogether. But that's it for what I watched this week. Tell me your thoughts on Ant-Man in the Wasp Quantumania down below. Tell me your thoughts on The Last of Us. Subscribe if you like this type of content. If you have seen Ocean's 11 and you like it as much as me, tell me in the comments below. This is my 7th week doing this. Next week we have Cocaine Bear coming up, so I'm looking forward to that. But that's going to wrap it for today. I hope everybody had a good President's Day off. I'm probably going to go enjoy Hogwarts Legacy some more. But until next time, have a great day. Check out my reviews, and I'll see you then. Bye.